Unrest spread across Egypt Wednesday as pro-Muslim Brotherhood students, protesters stormed the administration building of Islamic University following the arrest of the 59-year-old deputy leader of the Brotherhood's political arm. Blogger Aisha Charves has the latest on the crackdown of the Muslim Brotherhood from Cairo. Hi, Erica. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Hello.
So tell me about this protest. As I understand it, protests have been happening on campuses for a while now.
That's correct. School started in early October, and the protests began a few weeks ago at these universities. And they began at Al-Azhar, the largest Islamic university in Cairo and one of the largest in the world. And they spread around universities across Cairo and across the country.
And what are the students, what are they asking for? What are their demands?
At this time, the students are not being clear with their demands. In the past, they were going out with signs showing the number 4 for Rab al-Adawiya, the place where Mohammed Morsi's supporters were disbanded from. But recently, it's become violent. They tried to take over the administrative building, locked people in, broke into windows, threw papers, began burning things. There's been a lot of throwing rocks at police. So it's sort of fallen apart from this organized protest, making demands like we want to see Morsi come back or we're against the military coup, to sort of an anarchy.
Are the protests happening just on this campus or other campuses around Egypt?
Well, it started in Al-Azhar around October 19th and has spread to various universities across pretty much all of the major universities in Cairo and all across the region, Alexandria, in the east and the west, and down in Upper Egypt as well.
What's been the response to these protests? As you've reported on Arise America, of course, the military government there that replaced Morsi cracked down on the protest and out in the streets of Cairo. What's been the law enforcement response to these student protests?
Well, they've been cracking down on student protests, but students have been returning, and they're very shy to actually shut down the university. The concern is that if they shut it down, it'll just begin again, and that it could be worse this coming week with Mohammed Morsi's trial coming up. A lot of the local news agencies have not been showing street protests, but everyone has been showing the student protests. So in a way, these students are getting the airtime that they wanted.
Yeah, it would seem. Now, can you just tell me what is left, or is there anyone left of the leadership of the Muslim Brotherhood?
There is not. Just today, one of the major players who had escaped until now, his name was Issam El-Arian. He'd been on the run and he was caught. So nobody from the upper part of the Muslim Brotherhood is left. Around 30 people were being tried in court, some of Egypt's largest courts, and the judges actually stepped down, saying they did not have the right to try these people because they were barred from attending their own trials. So right now, none of the leaders of the Muslim Brotherhood are on the street, only the supporters.
Also, something that I read in the reports was there is a resurgence of a general who was very influential in Mubarak's government, Mohammed Farid Tohami. Tell us about him and his reemergence.
Well, during the time of Hosni Mubarak, now 2 presidents ago, the heavy security state, he was one of the leaders in their security apparatus. They have a huge spy network and an organization that brings in information, and he was a part of that. Now, when people would complain to the government, it was his job to make sure that these reports got passed on into the legal system, and he's been accused, particularly recently, of sort of obstructing justice, having reports lost, not filing them. And he came back the day after Morsi was removed. It's said to be a huge part of going in this sort of violent dispersal of the people in Rab al-Adawiya. He's not a fan of Morsi. Morsi was the one who removed him from his job around a year ago.
What's been the public response to his reemergence?
You know, a lot of TV and local media have not reported on it until an article came out in an international magazine. Now, when this article came out in English, they started translating it and bringing it back to Arabic news, but it's not in local media. People are not talking about it a lot. People either support sort of this return of the deep security state because it's the antithesis of the Muslim Brotherhood, or they're fearful of it. And if they're fearful of it, they aren't likely to want to speak out at this time.
Erica, tell us what's daily life like now in Cairo?
Well, we still have a curfew, although the curfew has been greatly lifted. It began at 7 p.m. until 6 in the morning. Most days it's now 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. But on Fridays, it's still a 7 p.m. curfew, which is really difficult. Friday is basically, imagine your Saturday. You have to be home by 7 o'clock. You can't even go out in the evening because at 5 o'clock, all the traffic's going to start. So this puts a huge damper on family life. It puts a big difference on commerce. It's really affected Cairo, which is, of course, the hub of this country. I'd be interested to see an economist's report, but I'm sure that it's had a huge impact on the economy.
Do you imagine there will be any increase in restrictions on November 4th when Morsi's trial begins?
It depends on if there are more protests, and we do anticipate that there will be more protests. It's been promised at this time that the curfew will be lifted in mid-November, but that is well after this court date will begin. So I think it's anyone's guess at this time, but hopefully they'll lift the curfew soon.
All right, Erica Aisha Charves, thank you so much.
Thank you, Debbie.